What's going on, my today people? My name is Wendy, and I really appreciate you all joining me yet again for another. Y'all, we are almost at a quarter century, man. Give yourselves a round of applause, man. Salute. Now, on today's entry into the time capsule, I want to talk a little bit about the Florida Department of Education's new African American history standards and guidelines. I know. But hey, I guarantee y'all have not heard this perspective yet on this, so I'm excited to give it to y'all. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about the Sounds of Freedom movie. I have yet to see it. Maybe y'all have, but it's really pretty interesting what's going on right now as far as Hollywood and the mainstream media in regards to the movie. So we'll touch on that soon. And for the main, I really want to talk about a few women that I think would have done great running the world. But we'll get to that later. But first, you must pay the pass. Dear future robots, as the human species becomes increasingly borderless, how will countries maintain relevance? For the first time in history, most humans on every corner of this planet can communicate with each other, regardless of language. Think about that. I guess the scattering of Babel ultimately had the opposite effect. Let's start the show. So what's going on, y'all? Like, how's everybody doing out there, man? I hope y'all are living in your blessings and all that good stuff. Everything's all right on my end. It'd be nice to win the lottery, but I'm content. I'm happy. All right, we actually just had my son's 5th birthday party. His birthday was last Monday, but we had his birthday party on that following weekend or the Saturday, and it was cool. It was a nice little event. Unfortunately, my wife and I put it together a little last minute. You know, kind of was trying to rush and throw out invitations almost within 2 weeks of the party, which is tough. Y'all know if y'all have kids out there, that could be a little tough. But in our defense, I was originally thinking about just bringing him to Universal Studios. You know, I talked to my wife about that, and at one point we were on board. But then as it kind of got closer and just life and handling stuff with his school, since he's going to kindergarten, we kind of lost track of everything, and decided to, hey, let's just do something at the house. It'll be a little quicker than spending a whole day, and Universal tickets, if y'all don't know, are pretty hefty. So it was like, hey, you know what? We can get a nice little bounce house situation here. Let's see what he wants. So asked him just to make sure, because you definitely want to make these things memorable. And, he definitely chose the bounce house. He wanted to do hood rat things with his friends, have all the friends from school and friends that we have of the family and all that, all their kids, just wanted to have everybody over and do the slip and slide in the bounce house. So you know what? Hey, perfect. That fits into the plan and the budget that we had in mind. So we made it happen. And, only thing that matters is that he enjoyed it. Everybody had a good time, and that's it. And by that's it, I mean, I don't think we're going to do another party at the house, man. The level of work that we had to do. And honestly, it was mainly because it was last minute. I will say that. But yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know how many of those we have left in us. I'll just put it like that. Let's see. What else? Talked to one of my neighbors, like 2-3 houses away from me. He knows who he is, and he'll probably hear this, but it is what it is. Talked a little bit about working out, because I know he works out on his own in his garage. And for those that don't know, I work out and by myself at my home as well. I have a little setup of mine, but it does me all right. But we were, got to talking about fitness and whatever. And apparently, I didn't really know prior to that, but he was talking about being some kind of like a trainer or something like that at a high school. So I'm like, oh, I'm kind of intrigued. My ears are up now. So hey, all right, cool. You want to do something? Let's work out. And he works out really early. I think he has to be to work really early. So 5 a.m. You know what I mean? I remember doing that at one point, but now I'm like 6:15, something like that. Sometimes even afternoon if I want to work out with my wife. So, I already have to get up extra early now to work out with him, which is no problem. So he came to my place, and it's still dark outside and everything. So came to my place, and we just get to working out, and I find out almost immediately that he's an ego lifter. And for those that don't know what an ego lifter is somebody who lets their ego get to them and they put on more weight than they can sustain or do correctly. All right. And thankfully, I still got a great workout, mainly in my triceps. I mean, it was supposed to be a chest and bicep included work. He said the triceps were supposed to be a warm up, but just kept adding weight. And me, I'm not going to say no, but I'm also doing it the correct way. He's turning a tricep extension or a skull crusher, I mean, into a bench press. Meanwhile, I'm doing it the correct way. So I'm getting to that burn quicker. That muscle, my muscle, it's beat, you know? And we're doing curls with the easy bar, and he's like swaying back and forth, and I'm like, oh man. Okay, so you're not an expert, but like I said, whenever somebody else is there, for my lifters out there, whenever somebody else is there, it does kind of have an effect of kind of pushing you. Hey, I don't know what it is, but um, and if you ever get stuck at any point, you get that little tap on the bar, and that helps as well. So I did appreciate that. And I will work out with him in the future a bit more, but instead of having him put together the plan, chilling, because I got control over my ego, I was just like, hey, you're an expert. What you say you're an expert? Go ahead, put something together, and we'll do it. I'll do it, whatever. Yeah, I think I'll make it more of a collaborative event next time. You know what I mean? A collaborative effort, I should say. But hey, it is what it is. Still had a great time. Like I said, you know who you are. You're gonna hear this, but it is what it is. Maybe you'll hear this. I don't know. I don't think you'll know about the podcast when the world does, or when I start promoting. But yeah, my triceps are burning right now, y'all. How you gonna want to do triceps? How you gonna want to kill triceps and then want to do chest after, like bench press after? It don't make sense. Like it makes no sense. Like I, I it made way more sense to kill your biceps and then do chest. You know what I mean? Like okay, but hey, I don't want to make this too long, y'all. So I'm just gonna get right into scrap metal media. All right, got a fun one today. A lot of details I want to put into it. So let's go right ahead, y'all. Zoom. Scrap Metal Media. Welcome to Scrap Metal Media, where all news is two-faced. Take it or leave it. Now, I cannot front y'all. I came on here really planning on going in on this Florida African Americans History Standards Work Group, so they call it. And for those that don't know what that is, they're essentially a right-wing think tank tasked with putting together standards in the state of Florida in regards to education on said African American history. Now, I personally like to keep emotion out of these types of situations and either simply provide facts to substantiate my opinion or make an attempt to appeal to the, let's say, the common sense intellectual that exists in all of y'all, right? And I fully understand that some of y'all are just lost causes, but it is what it is, right? But nonetheless, I like to know what I'm talking about. So I took it upon myself to actually read the state academic standards for social studies in 2023. These are some of the standards that went viral recently, with Governor Ron DeSantis pretty much throwing full support behind his hand-picked Board of Education's latest masterclass at manipulating history with conjecture and downright omitting of historically documented facts. Now, as I already stated, I read through it. So I wasn't just being manipulated by the mainstream media. And honestly, I swear, if y'all did nothing and only digested media coverage, or worse, VP Kamala Harris's reaction to it, you'd think the world was about to end. Like, I told y'all before, neither side is your friend. They let you fight the culture wars while they do the bidding of the greedy corporations. Shame on you, VP, by the way. I digress, though. So, like I was saying, I did what most did not and read said document. In sections 6 through 8, that's where my ears began to perk up. The section was titled SS, funny, dot 68 dot AA dot 1. Quote, understand the causes, courses, and consequences of the slave trade in the colonies, end quote. There's 6 sections in this part alone, accompanied by their clarifications. The first one that really stood out was 1.1, titled, quote, identify Afro Eurasian trade routes and methods prior to the development of the Atlantic slave trade, end quote. Now, within this section and its clarifications, there is no mention of Columbus or Cristobal Colon, as I like to call him. No, not as I like to call him. That's his actual name. Look it up. And maybe this think tank, I mean workshop, just understood where their bread was buttered, and also considering their boss, Governor DeSantis, being Italian himself, I understand why they'd intentionally leave out that monstrous zealot Cologne, who never even made it to North America, by the way. They also labeled this section, quote, Afro Eurasian trade routes, end quote, as if to remove European influence completely from the advent of chattel slavery and even indentured servitude. First off, the word slavery literally comes from the Slavic people, who were some of the first enslaved in Common Era, or AD as some call it, by other Europeans. Noticing a trend. And no, there's more. This whole section on slavery and its effects presupposes that the peoples they referred to as Africans were a savage brand of subhuman with no advancements prior to European quote unquote explorers making contact. In fact, they designed it to explicitly say that Africans were already enslaving each other while in the same document saying slavery grew out of indentured servitude. Which is it? By the way, there's no mention of, which is a major issue that I have with it. There's no mention of anything of importance or of import that was done on this continent named Africa prior to Europeans exploring, if that's what they want to call it. No mention at all of the Great Mali Empire, Bubakari, any of them, Timbuktu, Queen Nzinga, Shaka Zulu, or the original pyramid builders. By the way, first of all, they weren't Jews. That's biblical history. And it definitely wasn't aliens. All right, so stop that. Salute to the Yoruba and the Dogon, believed to be direct descendants of some of the pyramid builders, right? The originals. Uh, that's the thing they don't teach about history, right? And here's the thing, actually. Uh, Kemet, all right? Land of the Black, Land of the Blacks, whatever you want. It's spelled KMT. Some spell it KEMET. Look it up. Uh, that's the place the Greeks eventually called Egypt. All right. It existed thousands of years before Alexander the Macedonian even got there, and actually has a well documented history. What would happen actually is that when these Proto Europeans, I like to call them Greeks and Romans, etc., first set eyes on it, they claimed it as their own. The dynasties that existed so many millennia prior were already on the decline or just gone. Right? Obviously, there were still people there, but they were far from the great days of old. This is the part of history that folk with agendas or just biases just don't mention. Nothing lasts forever, and everything isn't a textbook story with a fairy tale ending. I remember when I was first learning about Haitian history, like, the Haitian Revolution. This has got to be like in my late teens, right? I thought it was just a swift and easy domination. Just because these Africans we call Haitians were just different, just built different. And to be frank, just better, right? Like the French stood no chance at all. Now, little did I know at the time, and honestly, it wasn't until I became a seasoned historian and a bit more varied, I guess, in my taste of literature, that I realized that, for one, it was a hard fought battle, and it most likely would not have happened or even been successful if it wasn't for the fact that the French Revolution preceded it. Wars being fought on so many fronts, this was truly chess. Humanity is complex, y'all. Like, seriously, it's complex. Now, back to these new standards, right? Let's go to section 2.3. It's titled Examine the Various Duties and Trades Performed by Slaves, right? Examples include agricultural work, painting, carpentry, etc. You'll get the gist. This is the section that has been getting all this hoopla lately, right? This little old section. And also in the clarification is where they actually say slaves developed skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. So somebody somewhere, right, comb through this and pick the most obscure thing that they thought simple-minded folk would get upset at. And this is how they think of you, and this is how they play you, right? Now, y'all might be surprised, but I personally don't think, or I personally don't see a major issue here. Yes, I said it. It is factually correct. Y'all heard me right. It's factually correct. They are right. Yes. And honestly, this would hold up in any court of law. Like, just think about it. Slaves that were doing certain tasks or laborious jobs or whatever the case is, or skilled labor for years, decades. Obviously, post slavery would have that skill. Now, obviously, there's tons of complexities even in that, but that is a factual statement. It's very slick, and I see where they're trying to go here. Um, a la Texas handbooks back in the day, or Texas class, school books. I remember that. Like I said, it would really hold up in any court of law. Uh, just listen to how VP Kamala reacted to this, y'all. Listen to Kamala, y'all. Go ahead.
They push forward revisionist history. Just yesterday in the state of Florida, they decided middle school students will be taught that enslaved people benefited from slavery. They insult us in an attempt to gaslight us, and we will not stand for it.
What else?
They want to replace history with lies. Middle school students in Florida to be told that enslaved people benefited from slavery. High schoolers may be taught that victims of violence, of massacres, were also perpetrators. Adults know what slavery really involved. It involved torture. It involved taking a baby from their mother. It involved some of the worst examples of depriving people of humanity in our world. So in the context of that, how is it that anyone could suggest that in the midst of these atrocities, that there was any benefit to being subjected to this level of dehumanization?
I bet 100 she ain't read the actual document. I'll say it again, man. Madam VP, you are letting them use and abuse you. I was rooting for you. I really was. Ask anybody. You can hear it in my past episodes. Now, the only way I can see you being president is if President Biden drops dead prior to January 1st, 2025. All you can do is wait that out. Looking back to the document now, I'll go back up to standards 9 through 12, section ending in 1.2, where they gloss over the colonial shift from indentured servitude to slavery. They don't even call it chattel slavery, which is literally what every historian worth their salt refers to it as. This think tank, work group, whatever they want to be called, makes no mention of Bacon's rebellion, which is essentially where the indentured servants from all backgrounds, most being mistreated during their time of unpaid service, because we all already know that absolute power corrupts absolutely, blah, blah, blah. Yes, yes, yes. But this is when they started to all come together and speak out against the wealthy, like these wealthy landowners and, corporate class or whatever. Um, when that didn't work, like when talking it out or pleading with them, because a lot of them were being treated badly, a lot of their contracts that they had weren't being fulfilled, weren't being met. Uh, so enough of them that were being done wrong got together and tried to say something that didn't work. So they started to fight. This is what people all throughout history have done, always. Now, many died in some of these battles, and the rebellion eventually was put down. But the wealthy, with all of their nice free time and wealth and stuff, came together for a tete-a-tete, so to speak, with some of the best thinkers of the time to figure a way to manipulate the minds of the indentured servants, aka slaves, so that they never join forces again against the masters. Now, after some time, Johann Friedrich Blumenbach, Carl Linnaeus, and even Charles Darwin were used to come up with a system that focused on skin color and anatomy as the dividing lines between peoples from different parts of the world, no matter how exactly the same their plight and exactly the same their true persecutors were. It became social norm for quote unquote black to be considered less than, in many circumstances, even evil, giving rise to the overall justification for dehumanization and permanent subjugation. Welcome in chattel slavery. I own you and your progeny in perpetuity. The wealthy business class of the time slash corporations did that. They learned that they couldn't allow people to realize how much they had in common. Divide and conquer became a staple. Darker skinned people became the scapegoat around these decades. Hey, I hope y'all are keeping up with this because I'm pretty much going off the cuff right now. I'm not even gonna front. Um, why couldn't they have a thinker like me in the room helping to develop these history standards, right? Well, I know. I think I can tell you now, but we probably would have had a long day in that room if I was there. Oh, and please, I hope you all look this up. All the things I'm telling you, I hope y'all look it up. And especially this document, please look it up and read it for yourself. Please, please, please look it up and read it for yourselves. Um, there's actually a section that talks about the importance of churches in freeing slaves, but not the truth of how churches were used to make slaves. Hmm. They don't talk about the relationship between Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, which is notable, might I add. They actually have a section where they want teachers to compare and contrast the actions of Nat Turner and John Brown to those of Douglas. The clear point they attempted to make here was to be civil, right? Be civil. Don't fight for what you know is right. Just take it. Brown and Turner believed in freedom so much that they wanted to get it back in blood. Say what you will, but the atrocities of slavery, especially chattel slavery, are well documented. These men did what they saw as necessary to battle an unjust system. They also believed in it so much that they paid the ultimate price. Nat Turner's rebellion in 1831 and John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry. Look them up. While I give those men their just due, Douglas was just as necessary. Y'all, please, especially my smart history people or people that want to learn more legitimately, read through these new education standards. Like I asked you to before. Just don't rely on corporate media, please. They're always going to lead you astray. It just is what it is. And too bad for them that some of us already know about Pope Alexander the Sixth's papal bull. That's pretty much a decree coming from the Pope of that time, when we lived in more of a theocracy, which we kind of still have a little bit of that now, but not as much. But Pope Alexander the Sixth's papal bull literally was calling for the subjugation and enslavement of Africans. And there's even Pope Nicholas V. You guys look this up. Please look this up. I'm tired of saying that. But Pope Nicholas V had a papal bull calling for raids of Africa and to vanquish Africans. Like literally, like explorers like Magellan were bringing just random Africans that he caught or traded for or whatever to the Pope. You know what I'm saying? Like this was this was an industry. These people, they weren't even seen as human. You know what I mean? Like literally. It's called the doctrine of discovery, guys. People look it up. Uh like at this point, DeSantis and his people are smarter than y'all and they know it. They are playing with us to our faces, and I think they know how lazy and disinterested most of us are in anything that's real. So they know that they can pretty much do what they want and get away with it. Y'all notice any mainstream news source delivering it like me, with such detail and actual documented history? I'm telling y'all, if if y'all let this guy and his team in the White House, then y'all deserve what you get. Register as Republicans. I've mentioned this before, but please register as Republicans now and vote against him in the primaries. Vote against him as much as you can. Also, vote against anybody he appointed or supported. I wouldn't trust a whole lot of them. So serious about that, by the way. Now, y'all should already know from previous episodes that I do not actually even support the teaching of slavery in K through 12, let alone the 8th grade. I'll explain soon. Section 1.2, they called it, quote, describe the contact of European explorers with systematic slave trading in Africa, end quote. Wow, that's literally ridiculous. Look, the history of slavery, let alone facts nearest to the truths, are extremely complex, right? It would take adults decades to truly understand. In fact, most don't know much about it at all outside of uh, some vicious lies and dangerous rumors. Shout out to Big Boy, that we were all taught as kids, right? In this country, unless your parents had an amazing appetite for book knowledge that passed down to you, we were all horribly miseducated on the topic of slavery. But don't feel too bad. It was by design. It wasn't until my early 20s and that saying that was going around about a black man in books, that I started on my journey towards truth. I wouldn't trust just any regular old teacher instructing K through 12 students on this subject. It would literally have to be a apolitical historian with at least 20 years of study on the resume or something like that. Also, learning about slavery, now that I think about it, never actually helped anyone that I know about get a job outside of being a historian at a museum or something like that. It serves no purpose outside of making kids feel bad. I argue that it's done to socialize young kids into positions of less than in society. Honestly, I could say the same about the Holocaust. Education on these hotly debated and complex topics alike should be on the parents to distribute to their children as they see fit. Do me a favor and think back to what I said in the past 10 minutes or so, and think about how much of that you didn't know as an adult. Now, imagine that you have a child, and that very child is being taught similar content by some stranger you met a few times at PTA. Listen, throw slavery curriculum out of K through 12. It does no good. And if you're a parent and you disagree, do better. Teach your child after you educate yourself, of course. Now, moving on from education, but unfortunately not slavery and not kids. Anybody see that new movie, Sound of Freedom yet, or Sounds of Freedom? Y'all should already know from the last few episodes that I'm not a fan of movie theaters, right? I think they're an overrated experience. But hey, if you've seen it, did you like it? Hmm. I think it's funny that you can tell someone's political affiliations and loyalties just by whether they watch the movie or not nowadays. That's how divided we are. If you watch it, then you're maybe right leaning or conservative. And if you didn't watch it yet still have a critique, you're probably a weird leftist or some kind of liberal or something like that. I don't know. I promise, y'all. I really hate that our system is designed like the Bloods and the Crips. So in 2013, a man named Tim Ballard started a nonprofit organization called Operation Underground Railroad. And that was where he and his team would pretty much go around the world dismantling human trafficking networks and literally saving children. This man has been profiled all over mainstream media, news. You guys can look it up. It's on YouTube if you haven't seen it when, back then in 2013 or whatever. Uh, but around 2013, I should say. And by the way, this is mainstream media prior to Pizzagate being a thing and prior to Trump being president. Yet and still, those two very things are what some people have chose to associate Tim Ballard with, which is strange. This movie, Sounds of Freedom, only covers several missions apparently because the almost 3,800 people, most of them being children, that his organization rescued would have probably made for a very long movie. Uh, Look, personally, I believe children are the most valuable, precious, and yet delicate beings on this planet. They should be protected, and those that would do harm to them should be jailed 6 feet deep, if you know what I mean. All right. It just seems kind of strange that the mainstream media, as well as Hollywood, seem to not agree with that sentiment. Critics hated this movie when it first came out. In fact, Fox shelved it, right? They own the rights to this movie and they shelved it. When Disney purchased Fox, they shelved it. Major networks like Netflix passed on it, and the list goes on and on and on. Like, seriously. Now, this what makes it so, this is what gives life to so many conspiracy theories, man. Because just when you start to believe that Jeffrey Epstein did just off himself, something like this happens. I think Hollywood just might be evil. That's why you won't hear me giving my support, hoping things get back to normal. Strike on. Let that industry burn over there. Now, before y'all lose it, because I know a lot of y'all are TV or movie buffs, uh, understand, I am not saying that shows and movies should all just go away and nobody should have jobs and blah, 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 blah. No, no, no. They'll be here. All right. Entertainment is here to stay. Movies, TV shows, all that is here to stay. I'm merely speaking of Hollywood. All right. Now, some of y'all may not know, but before Hollywood was even a thing, big motion pictures were made on the East Coast, New Jersey to be specific. Not saying it should return there, but I know y'all heard Tyler Perry has a pretty nice pad. I'm sure he could use some A-class writers and actors for some of his shows and movies because some of these clips I see are horrendous. This is a big opportunity for a major paradigm shift, man. All I'm saying is Tyler Perry really seems well suited to take advantage of this whole situation. But hey, that just might be how my brain works. All right. Now, speaking of taking advantage, what's up with Lex Luthor? I mean, Elon Musk. This guy probably enjoys being called Lex Luthor, man. I could see him liking that. Now, I actually saw a statement recently by President Biden where he stated that Elon's international relationships are worth looking into. Um, Somewhere around PayPal and Tesla, I think we all forgot that this guy wasn't American. I remember an article from 2022 about how Elon's quote growing presence or influence in global affairs were starting to worry government officials. End quote. Let me translate. Elon, you came here rich, but America made you wealthy. Stop talking to the ops. This guy has embraced his inner villain. Like I told y'all a year ago, we are watching his origin story in 4K. The article from last year talked about how Elon was rubbing shoulders with foreign prime ministers and presidents while snubbing officials here in the US. And that's, by the way, after getting countless millions in corporate welfare over 20 years. And I know, I know y'all are mad that he just X'd out Twitter. All right. All I can really say is, man, I told you so. I told you so. Again, this is America. Now, let me play that new Jill Scott for y'all on the let out, man. That's it for Scrap Metal Media, y'all.
Oh, say, can you see out in the street that this place doesn't smile on you, colored child, whose blood built this land with sweat and their hands. But you'll die in this place, and your memory reigns. Oh, say, does this truth hold any weight? This is not the land of the free, but the home of the slave.
I had this on my mind to do for some time now, and was kind of just waiting for what I believe to be the right time. Now, I think it was 2 episodes ago, I spoke on several men, people in general. I think I mentioned a few women in there, or one woman or whatever, but mainly men, right? In the Uncle Thomas's episode. I think it was the Spook Who Sat by the Other Door or something like that. I love that title. But I spoke about a few guys that I believe history will not look upon favorably. In fact, most of their legacy is not looked upon favorably today. It may have started off different, maybe. I even mentioned Uncle Ruckus somewhere in there, you know. For me, that correlation stood. I hope y'all understood it. But yes, given that I did that, I wanted to give what I saw as the opposite. Women that history is already beginning to look upon favorably. Women that have held their chin up high in front of snarling faces, fire breathers, people coming at them with sticks and stones, arrows, just for their ideas, just for their thoughts, just for their perspectives, just for their expertise, right? These women represent what I see as women that could have ruled the world in any time period. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, ahead of her time, with her theories on color confrontation and the nature of racial hatred. Psychology, the mind. Jane Elliot urged people to look within, analyzing systems coaxing you into blind hates. The infamous, or the famous, brown-eyed, blue-eye experiment. The body. Sister Shahrazad Ali, ahead of her time on the dangers of the feminist movement for Black families. Famous author of titles like The Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman and The Black Woman's Guide to Understanding the Black Man. the soul. These three women, to me, have always represented power, strength, unshakable faith in the Creator, and the fact that they were put in place to share their message and change the world. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, who passed in 2016, rest in peace, rest in peace, rest in peace. She was an American psychiatrist, author, and activist known for her work on the psychological and social impact of racism and white supremacy on people of African descent. She was born in Chicago and earned her medical degree from Howard University in 1962. Dr. Welsing's most influential work is her book, The ISIS Papers, The Keys to the Colors. That was published, by the way, in 1991. But I remember when I was reading that, I read it maybe 10, 11 years, probably like more like 9 or 10 years ago. I remember walking around in the shop where I was working with that book, and people were looking at me like I was crazy because obviously they knew nothing about the ISIS papers. They just saw the word ISIS, and everybody remembers ISIS from the war in Afghanistan, right? But you know, that was just the funny part of that. I remember how everybody was giving me funny looks or whatnot. But in that book, she developed her theory known as the melanin theory, where she argued that melanin, the pigment responsible for skin color, eye color, and all that, it's in your blood, it's everywhere. But she was positing that it plays a crucial role in shaping human behavior, intelligence, and cultural practices. She believed that the relative absence of melanin in people of European descent led to feelings of inadequacy, leading to oppressive behaviors and structures aimed at subjugating people of African descent. Dr. Welsing was an intellectual. Period, up and down, no way else to slice it. So I believe she was brought on a lot of these networks. Like you can YouTube or Google it now. Look up Dr. Frances Cress Welsing on Donahue or a host of other shows from like the 80s or, you know, whatever, speeches or whatever the case is. But whenever she was in the public, like on a talk show, the audience didn't know what she was talking about. They only heard buzzwords, words that they just, you know, that they weren't conditioned to hear, phrases they weren't conditioned to hear. So it kind of stung the soul, you know? She took a lot of arrows, man. She took a lot of arrows. And I'm not saying that everything, you know, every shot went in. Again, she's an intellectual, so it's a lot of thought exercises and stuff that went into it. And obviously she's living as a quote unquote black woman in this world, in this country specifically. So that experience is a unique experience. Period. Throughout her career, Dr. Welsing was a vocal advocate for African Americans. And she even fought against racial inequality, striving to empower the African American community through her writings and lectures. Her theories and ideas have both garnered support and also faced criticism, like I said. So salute. Love her. All right. And like I said, to me, she represents the mind. Now on to the great Jane Elliot. Now she's an educator and anti-racism activist, best known for her Blue Eyes, Brown Eyes exercise conducted in the 1960s. She literally did this in 68. I think it was the week after Dr. Martin Luther King, unfortunately, was assassinated. She designed this exercise to teach her third grade students about racism and discrimination by dividing them based on their eye color and treating one group as superior to the other on different days. The exercise aimed to demonstrate the impact of discrimination and help students understand the effects of prejudice and inequality. The body. and again, if you haven't seen Jane Elliot, I don't know what kind of country music rock you're under, but get up from under there. Expose yourself to different things, different cultures, different people. Walk out the house. You know what I mean? Walk out the house, you know? Go out, do something. Read a book, you know? But you can just YouTube and see tons of times where she did the same very exercise with adults. And you actually notice that the adults sometimes acted more like the kids. Like, it's crazy. Again, it's hard to break the conditioning that you give to a child. This is why systems like religion, I'm gonna call it out, it is what it is. This is why it works so well. Sunday school is a major tool. You have to get them young. It's hard to break once you get them young. It's hard to break once you get the young minds, right? So again, she represents the body, all right? Shahrazad Ali, man. I remember the amazing headdress she would wear, the hat, like just fire, man. Like again, ahead of her time. Literally ahead of her time, man. She, for those that don't know, is an author, lecturer, and social commentator. She gained recognition for her books, like I mentioned before, The Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman and The Black Woman's Guide to Understanding the Black Man, the first being published in 1989. Now, in her book, Sister Ali presents her controversial perspectives on African American relationships, gender roles, and family dynamics. That really got her a lot of hate, especially in the 90s. I remember seeing an episode, and I think she was, I remember seeing her specifically on Donahue, what was it, 1988 or 1980? I can't remember. Was it the 90s actually? Actually, I think it might have been the 90s, but it's funny because I recently, like a few months back or a few weeks back, seen Ayanla Van Zant talk about it, because she was on an episode chastising Shahrazad Ali. She was actually on an episode chastising her back then. And it's just ironic that the position, the position that Ayala Van Zant is in now, trying to get women to follow and understand the things that Sister Shahrazad Ali was saying back then. So she was used by the system to confuse and discombobulate the community. It is what it is. It's just a fact. She was. And she, I don't know if she would admit it nowadays, but she definitely admits to being wrong. Just look up what she was talking about back then and look up what Ayanla Van Zant is talking about now. Again, you can just look at society and see the things come to fruition, the things that Sister Shahrazad Ali was warning about. She's for sure vindicated all the arrows and darts and fire breathers that were coming her way. She's vindicated. These three women are the epitome of strength. Stronger than a lot of men I know. I'll say that. So I guess this is what it should look like if women ruled the world, right? Less booty holes being brown and more keeping your chin up, right? That's all I got, y'all. That's all I got. Let's go to bit by bit. This ain't just a prediction. This is bit by bit. The bit by bit prediction of the day is: with mounting efforts from foreign conglomerates backed by the likes of China and Saudi Arabia to seemingly purchase this horse-shaped commodity that we call a country, I see the current captains of capitalism selling their stakes to sail off into the sunset while the rest of us are left to figure this out with our new landlords. Now, I really want this to be wrong, but considering the recent events like Burisma, major musical artists selling off their rights, the PGA Tour sale, and a state government having to actually enact legislation to prevent foreign agents of China from buying land and or property in their respective state, who am I to deny the existence of an obvious trend? That's all I got for the time capsule today, y'all. Peace. And we are just universes crashing. Just do your best to leave a mark. Also, subscribe, comment, and leave 5 stars. This is Wendy, signing off. Dear future robots, peace.